Hey guys, EST here, and boy, have you heard about the big fog epidemic throughout all of America? Oh my gosh, it's the evil death fog that has weird properties and weird smells, and it's a government op, and oh no. Is there any veracity to it? Have there ever been air quality or fog related issues in the past? Oh, I think that's going to surprise you. What won't surprise you is that, well, everybody who jumped on that bandwagon after the first couple is just clout chasing idiots. They're like, whoa, I've never seen this. Oh, it smells funny. They're just lying. But generally, the two things that the initial reporters were saying is that, whoa, there's so much fog everywhere, especially in areas where we don't normally get fog. Like, I've lived here my whole life. We don't get fog like this. And two, that it smells funny. I can explain both. But first, people were talking about, well, the government's spraying something again. They're up there spraying something. Maybe it's them drones again. Look how many, aircraft they try to use to put out a forest fire and they still can't do it. Now try to spray something that's affecting all of America. We don't have enough flying things to do that. And the number of people it would take, engineers to test it, and the chemical shipments, and that's why this whole chemtrail thing is the most ridiculous conspiracy I have ever heard in my life. You really think 100,000 people are in on it, and they're all just hush hush and keeping quiet about it? It doesn't help that the government actually did go and spray some stuff in the air in the 80s or whatever. So, yeah, they did it. There's a little bit of truth, but people are saying, well, they're back doing it again, and this time it's causing fog, or it's those Chinese weather balloons, or, who knows? There's not enough aircraft to make this much fog show up, so I think we can rule out man-made anything. Well, you might have noticed it's an El Nino year after back-to-back La Nina years, which is, the ocean current water temperature thing. Go look it up. Ever since I was born, El Nino's been screwing with the weather. Okay, this ain't news. When I was, I think 9 years old or something, we were out playing basketball in short sleeves on Christmas Day. It's not normal for the north end of the Northwest. It's usually under a foot of snow by then. But that was an El Nino year. Fast forward, 7, 8, 10 years, whatever it was. There it goes again. Wacky weather, a bunch of school closures, weird snow patterns. No snow all winter, followed by a ton of snow the next year. Because, El Nino, La Nina, they are typically, depending upon where you are, approximately going to flip the trend. So whatever was excessive the year before, it'll flip to the opposite when the ocean currents flip, which makes sense. Dry places will get wet places will get dry, and so on. Now, also, you can talk about the cause all you want, especially when people are selling fake carbon credits and it's just a big grift and they just want to scream at you because they're angry, horrible, immoral people. They just want something to make them feel superior and to be mad at somebody else and scream at somebody else about to make themselves feel better. And then anytime money is involved, well, they're going to sell you carbon credits for saving the forest that was going to get cut down. When you go to the country and say, were you ever going to cut this down? They're like, no, that's not even the right type of wood. Woo, we did it. We're carbon neutral now for paying a scam company that did nothing. But that doesn't mean it's not happening. You think every single country in the entire world, every scientist everywhere independently with different manufactured and calibrated thermometers are all collectively lying about the temperatures? The temperatures are going up slightly. If you think it's just from CO2, you're an idiot. Okay, it could be methane mixed with lack of sulfur, mixed with lack of volcanic stuff, mixed with the solar cycle, mixed with the plastic floating on the oceans. It could be just about everything. It's probably everything put together. Is it as dire as they're saying? Absolutely not. Are carbon credits the way to fight it? Absolutely not. If the entirety of Europe and America disappeared, India and China would ruin the environment by themselves, just with the amount of output they've got in the last 2 years. But Florida was supposed to be underwater by now, so it is getting warmer. You cannot deny that. That to deny that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But to say that it's because you plugged in your cell phone charger overnight and it drew 1/8 of a watt, that's also the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That was an actual government PSA about 15 years ago. So I think we could say it's a couple degrees warmer than it was 30 years ago. That's pretty well confirmed. And then also add El Nino. Okay. It's warmer, then also it's additionally warmer. More warm water in that part of the ocean means more water vapor evaporating, which means more water in there to form fog, and it's staying at weird temperatures. Now, through all of November where I'm at and most of December, it was above freezing. That is weird. It's not unheard of when it gets colder in January and February where I'm at, but it was still weird. And we got a deluge of rain. Thankfully, it was rain and not snow. And then it never got cold enough to freeze, which is extremely unusual, except it was actually fairly mild for an El Nino year. and things will flip back to pretty normal next year. It's looking like that's all the predictions saying. Oh, I guess it is technically 2025 when I'm recording this. So this year, not next year, but you know what I mean. Well, what happens when it's 70 degrees out, normal amount of humidity, and a tree falls over and the leaves fall off and you cut your lawn? It breaks down in a nice, normal, not very smelly way, okay? It's aerobic composition, it's composting, it doesn't smell like rotting, swampy garbage. Well, when it's hovering around just above freezing, in the 40-degree range, everything's soaking wet, but it's not evaporating. You get anaerobic plant material breakdown, and that smells awful. That's why when you go out in spring and you're like, oh, it's finally 45 degrees out, I can go for a walk in short sleeves and shorts. At least that's what we do around where I'm at. And you're like, all winter, but finally fresh air, yes. And then you take a sniff and you're like, that actually smells awful. Oh, that's right. Everything's melting, all the half-rotted, broken down leaves, but it's not warm enough to get it up to the temperature where it would break down with healthy bacteria and assistance from sunlight. And I mean, like the best temperature to break down stuff is I think like 120 to 160. So the closer you get to that, the better you get proper plant matter breakdown that doesn't absolutely stink up your entire city. But when it's 38 degrees, your city do be stinking. So what normally happens is everything just stops. The bacteria go dormant, the fungi can't grow because there's no liquid water. They just kind of chill, pun intended, but also literally during the winter. And then when everything thaws, they resume breaking stuff down and it smells until it gets up to a good temperature. Well, it barely froze for a bunch of extra months because El Nino and slightly already elevated temperatures. So that's why you go outside, there's more fog because there's more water in the air to condense into fog on the ground. It's not quite getting down to freezing temperatures, so it's still evaporated in the air as liquid vapor water, or vaporized liquid water. And then it smells. Also, there have been tests about like how humans can smell better when it's more humid, so it's also amplified more than it would be. And that's why everybody's seeing a ton of fog. Now, the other thing was it could just be some viral nonsense where people are all making something up alarmist. They just want to get views on the internet because it makes them money or makes them think they're going to get internet famous. I ran 4 channels for 11 years. It's very overrated. But anyway, do like and subscribe if you like this content. Want to see some more of my educational, scientific-based information. But what none of them were saying was you get one person, I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're lying just to get money and views and whatever attention. There's deranged or jumping on a trend saying, oh, there's fog and there's not normally fog. Well, this is so weird. Must be the government. Ooh, conspiracy. Like and subscribe and follow. Ooh. I don't know who you are. Give me some hard numbers. What I need is, hey, the number of dense fog advisories went up by 70%. Like here's the cited source. Here's like NOAA or something. A couple people came out and said, like, allegedly they checked the numbers but didn't cite their source and said, no, the amount of fog is going up. And I'm like, okay, now I can believe it. Otherwise, when people say something is going on, don't just believe 10 to 50 people on the internet just because they're on TikTok trying to go viral by literally just making something up. I mean, look at all the medical misinformation and news misinformation on there, and people just don't care. They're just like, I don't care if I get to like X amount of views on either Twitter, which is now monetized, or TikTok, then I can make money. All I have to do is lie to stupid, gullible people about some viral thing and I make money. Pff, okay, I hate work. I'll lie to people. It's their own fault for believing me, so that's how I justify it. And also, TikTok is just low IQ, terrible people. So don't believe something's going on just because a bunch of people say it's going on or because the media says it's going on. They might have ulterior motives. But it's been foggy and smelly as heck where I'm at, so I thought, okay, well, there's one more anecdote. But I did a little research. Yeah, there has been a higher amount of fog this year. So there you go, confirmed. Now, is there ever a time where you need to worry about the fog? Well, I have talked about this on my channel because this is astonishing. The Great Fog of London. Coal-fired power plants, some coal-fired equipment still. People would still sometimes heat their homes with coal. And coal has all kinds of stuff in it. Sulfur, chlorine, lead, just nasty stuff. And when you burn it, well, it all goes into the air. So, they had a big supply of it. That was the energy source they chose. And London has had issues with thick fog and smelliness and lack of wind just because of where they are for, I believe the earliest I heard was 13th century. So I think we could say just about forever. I mean, it's the sunlight and it's where it is. And yeah. So then when they have fog problems and it gets so thick because of, the amount of water coming off of the whole ocean with them being an island, it's just the perfect storm of things going together to make insane fog. Well, the death fog of London, you might think, oh, what did it kill 12 people? It killed 4,000 people. It was a couple days. of just ultra ridiculous thick and very unusual colored fog that smelled unusual. And then people just started dropping dead in their homes. It was people with other medical conditions. It was people who are already sick with a respiratory illness, bronchitis or whatever. It was the elderly and people who smoked, which was like everyone back then. And it basically was just sulfur dioxide and hydrochloric acid, I think, a couple of the compounds that they basically mixed, and then it just sat there because of the fog and because of the lack of wind. There was nowhere people could go. I don't think furnace filters even existed back then, and if they did, I think only the rich had them. Everybody's eyes were burning. Everybody was having trouble going to work, finding they were even through it, breathing outside. In the aftermath of it, 12,000 more people died. That's 16,000 people, upwards of that number. I think the low end was 12,000, died from complications from this. Now, a lot of them already had issues, but some of them, they just had a really bad reaction, got a really bad dose of it, and it just wasn't going anywhere. And this was like children and not a healthy 20-year-old male adult or something. Males having 30% better air circulation to begin with, so we have a little advantage. But like everybody else, they're like basically producing mucus from the irritation, and then that lets bacteria stick to it. And it wasn't very sanitary back then. And you think, yeah, well, those idiots burning toxic fuels, and then it just hangs in there. What do they expect? London's awful. People in 1800s were idiots. This was 1952. We had a lot of stuff solved back then. I think, we still probably had lead pipes, but I think we had lead in the gasoline too, actually. Can't get them all, but they were like, they knew how atomic stuff worked. They had every chemical pretty much down. I mean, they were pretty close to like where we're at now, sort of. 50s was some pretty good tech, pretty good health knowledge. Okay, we haven't come that far since the 50s. Now the 20s, that's a different story, but the 50s, they were booming after the war. Everybody had money, everybody had babies, everybody had educations, everybody had electricity. It was popping off. And still, a cloud rolled in and killed over 10,000 people. That's more than 9/11. So can foul-smelling fog be a problem? Yes. Has it happened anywhere other than that? Maybe. I'm not aware of it, but probably. But was it caused by just people mass burning stuff and really, really unhealthy emissions from mostly power plants, which is what that was? Yeah, and we don't do that anymore. But let's say there was a really, really, really big weather event, grid down event, an ongoing persistent thing, a really big fire, a really big earthquake, and it's just destroying your whole area. Okay, now the hardware store down the street, who knows what aerosol compounds are all bursting and getting flooding and getting crushed or burned, or fertilizers, like solvents, everybody's garages, and who knows what they got in there. Oh my gosh, stuff coming off of cars, gas stations, flooding. Then you got the sewer, just every possible compound that could leak into something goes into something, and then some of it lights on fire. I mean, we're talking just weather-related event havoc in like a moderately dense or even suburban area. You're going to have a real bad time with the air quality. And that's why, what can you do about it? I'm about to tell you, hey, go get a gas mask. You could, but there's a cheaper solution. Not sponsored at all. It's just this video I put it in was very underappreciated. Got not many views. But I've got over 1,000 hours on both of them. They haven't broken yet. Lasko filter fans. They're like outrageously priced. They're like $70 for a damn box fan. But they have modified motors, because if you were to just take a normal box fan that you got at a secondhand store or something and then just duct tape a furnace filter to it, you might think, oh, we're good. I just built the same thing for cheaper. The Laskos have a specially modified motor, because if you restrict the airflow to that degree, the amount of free spinning angular force versus the amount of heat dissipation, the way that the wires are wound, and the amount of static pressure that they're allowed to build up without slowing down to the point where the energy has to go somewhere, which will then just be heat and it will melt and light on fire. Just take my word for it that even if you set the fan at 50%, that isn't really how it works. It'll still melt the motor. This is a specially modified fan motor that's meant to operate under resistance. This is what you need. I have two of them. They're 7 years old, and they both have over 1,000 hours on them. It gets me through allergy season, but during the California and the Canadian wildfires, which, look up the pictures in New York, oh my God, it was just yellow. Holy crap. A lot of people having a lot of problems, only a couple deaths from it. And that's when humans were trying to put it out. Now imagine grid down, world, EMP, war, whatever, who knows. Now there's a lightning strike, it's dry for a week, and nobody's trying to put it out. Or, like I said, there's an earthquake, you live in California near the fault because you're an idiot, and now your hardware store's roof fell in. And then part of it lit on fire. I would not want to even be a mile downwind of that. Who knows what's burning off, what metals, what chemicals, what sulfur compounds, acidic stuff. You are not going to be able to breathe. But even just extremely high amounts of smoke, or let's say something comes in and knocks down a ton of trees and then they all die, or some I guess like weather-related event, climate event, something, a bacteria, an insect, a swarm of something. Okay, now you got a bunch of dead, rotting plant stuff, and the mold spores coming downwind from that are insane. Anybody with asthma, they actually stand a chance of dying because you didn't buy like a little $70 device. So I've got a whole bunch of those furnace filters. It takes 20 by 20 by 1s, and I got 2 of them for redundancy, and I already know from taking it apart how to modify it to run off of direct 12 volt. Direct to the motor with no inverter, because going from DC from a battery through an inverter to plug it in to get 130 watts of power dropped straight to a DC to spin the motor, pretty stupid. Oh, actually, wait a minute. No, I'm thinking of the wrong device. These might actually directly run on AC, I think. I think these were the ones that I couldn't modify. There are AC motors. They're actually more efficient. They're better at pushing. So actually, I think these were the ones with AC. But the other experiment I did was I didn't do this. Somebody else did it, but I built it. They found out that the highest filtration stuff that you have in your house is actually toilet paper, and like a cotton t-shirt, a coffee filter, and a paper towel all don't even come close. And if you know how toilet paper is built, that makes sense actually, what type of fibers it is. It's also really thin. So if you were to take anything with a fan and rip the fan out of it, or just literally a fan, and then just on the intake put a little bit of toilet paper, you can filter the air. It's very inefficient, but it might be just enough to keep somebody with severe asthma or like bronchitis or who's sick or elderly from dying from a huge event where who knows what's in the air. And you might say, well, why clean all the air in my entire house when I could just wear a gas mask? Well, how many people are in your family? And have you seen the price on those cartridges? And they're real comfy to sleep in. So, I would actually, in that case, just clean all the air around you. So I'd recommend picking one of those up. It's the, just type in Lasco air filter fan, box fan, you'll see it. I think it's a pretty wise purchase. I call out good products when I see them. They ain't paying me for this. But yeah, I mean, imagine that scenario where some huge event grid down happens, but you're like 2 miles outside the city. You've got a little bit of solar. You got some energy generation. You've got a garden. You've got chickens. You've got a water filter and a well. You are like so set. And then half your family dies because they had asthma and everything upwind from you lit on fire. And now the smoke just made the air not breathable. Wow, you screwed up. It's like 30 seconds without air, 3 days without water, 1 day without shelter. You know, that whole thing. Why'd you skip over air? That's the first one. So if you say, well, it'll never happen, the air will never get so toxic that we won't be able to breathe it. Depends on your genetics and your immune system. I have terrible allergies. Right now in the middle of winter with it being 15 degrees, my allergies are going nuts. So I had to run both of those fans where I'm at. Cleaned up the air, and still I'm taking a bunch of meds for it right now. It's weird, and I don't have any pets here. Like, I don't know what's going on. It's just, it's weird. But I think it's the mold in the air because it just recently dropped below freezing. So we'll see what happens, but it's a nice purchase that you can use for practical stuff. And also, if you get a pack of those furnace filters, they're very well manufactured. They're not contaminated. They're like sterile, I guess would be the term. And then a fan with a motor that's not on, very, very simplistic circuit. You could leave it in a nice climate controlled area for like 10 years and you can turn it on, it'll still turn on. So durable, cheap, buy it. Or improvise something with toilet paper in the smallest amount of room that you could possibly get. So the fog isn't trying to kill you this time, but it might next time. That's I should title the video that. But if you enjoyed this content based heavily in science with research and cited sources from somebody who only makes videos on what they know what they're talking about, I'm sure you could appreciate that if you've seen other channels. Please do stick around, hit subscribe. Channel's kind of blowing up lately, so I appreciate that, but there's always room for more growth because more people knowing the right things means less people doing the wrong things in a disaster scenario. So I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.